Well, hello, Jennifer, back again for part two. Yesterday, about in part one, I shared how or where my body image distortion really began and how it quietly took root beneath the surface. Today, in part two, I'm opening up about how it showed up in my daily life and how, without realizing it, I became consumed by the need to control my body. What started out as being healthy slowly turned into something much more rigid. Exercise became less about feeling good and more about fixing what I believed was wrong. Supplements, routines, habits became rules that I felt I had to follow. And underneath it all was this quiet, constant pressure, a voice telling me that it was never enough. And at that time, it looked like discipline. It looked like commitment. And I was looked up to for that. I was revered for that by my students. I They told me that I inspired them. And that really made me feel good. And that reinforced it. And that's a beautiful thing. And I'll share a little bit in another series around purpose, but I that was the part that filled my heart. What I'm sharing with you, again, in this healing journey for me, is that the program, the underlying program that was running the whole time, and I was keeping alive, again, unconsciously, was all rooted or driven by fear and control. And it deeply disconnected me from my body, which is the opposite outcome that I wanted, but I didn't understand it. So if you've ever been caught in these cycles of over exercising or overthinking your routines or constantly trying to get it right, this conversation may really resonate with you. Healing for me, and I believe for all, frankly, starts with the awareness, and that's why again I'm here again today to share a little bit about where that played out in my life. So I yesterday I shared how it was really in high school when I adopted, I'll say, a belief that, oh, if I look a certain way, I will be accepted. Uh, I will be worthy. I'll be liked, what have you. I'm going to fast forward to after I graduated college, and I was looking for a job, and at the time I graduated with a degree in sociology. This was my undergrad, and I wanted to work with inner city youth. And I was in DC. I attended American University, and I couldn't find a paying job there. So I moved back home to Connecticut, and we lived very close to the New York border. And I wound up applying for a bunch of jobs, but I got accepted to this job, this organization. It was the New York State at the time, it was called the New York State Division for Youth. And it was a maximum security prison or rehabilitation center, is what they referred to it for all males, juveniles 13 to 21. I remember when and this is when Google didn't exist. So I went by the location, which was called Harlem Valley Secure Center, and to get some information. And I did, and I didn't realize it was a maximum security center for these young men. And I left that place literally shaking. And at the same time, what I said to myself then was, Jennifer, you're going to do this because you're going to prove them wrong, right? And this relates to the distortion, right? So again, being the fat kid, the slow kid, the not so smart kid, that was all again that distortion, but that I believed that being told, unconsciously again from my parents or others. I and my twin I mentioned yesterday, she was more like the tomboy. I was the twin that wore pink dresses and purple dresses and all that. And nobody would believe, but I remember saying, they will never believe that I can do this, so I'm going to prove them wrong. And so I accepted the job and I showed up, and it was beyond terrifying. Not only what I was seeing every day, but the internal dialogue for me, also just being a 5'3", 120-pound young woman, and these boys were towering over me. And I thought, oh my goodness, how do I feel safe? That was the entry into this whole obsession with exercise for me, because what I wound up doing is hiring a personal trainer, I'll call it, but he's a martial art. He worked at the facility, uh, fifth degree black belt, and I paid him privately to teach me how to self-defense because I just wasn't confident that if something were to go wrong, would I be able to protect myself? I wound up falling in love with the martial arts, and so I started to do that. Less of a self-defense, but more of the discipline. And it continued to feed this. Um, in some ways, I thought it was like awakening me to my inner strength. Now I realize, again, because of the why behind it, that it was just more of a control. But then it was, oh, I put all this effort into doing these things, mastering these katas, breaking these boards, sparring, um, and then I would get rewarded with the next belt, and the next belt, and the next belt, and that went on for a number of years until I eventually got my black belt, and it was still a very proud moment for me because I accomplished that. But once again, if I'm being really honest, what was the underlying program for me was about proving, about performance, about showing others what I can do versus really truly doing it for myself. That led into, oh, let me get my kickboxing certification. Let me get my personal training certification. Let me get my yoga certification. And I taught, in addition to my corporate world, and I stayed at that facility, by the way, for 5.5 years. And then I I moved on and I wound up working in the city. And for all those years, working a full-time job, I would teach 15 classes a week, right? And and it was every aspect of it was measuring, and every aspect, how many push-ups I could do. Um, there was that aspect, how many hops I could do, how many whatever. There was that measurement. There was the other measurement of my physical body. What did it look like? And this led into, how can I control it further through supplements? Because again, it was never enough. And I look back sometimes at this time, and I just remember, I mentioned this yesterday, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I needed to lose more weight. I needed to get more defined arms or legs or whatever it was. And so that led into this obsession with supplements, and anything to lose fat, any kind of fat burner. And this went on for years and years and years, or very restrictive diets, um, where, where quite frankly, again, going back to, I thought I was being healthy, was providing quite the opposite. And so for me, and I'm going to now really fast forward to recent year when I really became aware of it, and it was my guide that really helped me understand this. Because when I first started to work with her, I was, now this is many, many years later, but I joined a boxing gym. I joined a hot yoga studio in addition to doing my own workouts. Uh, and and she asked me a question. I think I had just gotten back from a boxing class and I was meeting with her. Uh, and I said, "Oh, I love it. It's just like this is my thing, kickboxing, boxing. I love it so much." And she asked me a very simple question. Do you love it because of what it provides for you, like your heart? You love it so much that it really inspires you, or are you loving it because you're looking for it's the burn calories, it's the re reducing fat? And at first I said, no, I love this. I have for the long time, for 20, almost 30 years, I've been in the martial arts and kickboxing, teaching, etc. And and then I paused and I really didn't know the answer to that. Am I really going there because I love it? Or is it a judging program? So I wound up after that conversation, that coaching conversation, really sat down and asked myself, Jennifer, let's be really real here. And everything that I was doing, I said, yeah, why am I going and I'm scheduling every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I'm going to boxing. And the other days I'm going to hot yoga. And I'm always looking to go to the hardest class that may not actually feel good for my body, but oh, I'll burn more calories. And as I started, it started with just that first bit of awareness for me, being really honest to say, I didn't even really know. Am I doing it because I really love boxing or yoga or this? That I just sat with that for a little bit. Then it unfolded to, okay, well, no, I know that I'm doing this for the wrong reasons. And I got really sad about it because and the sadness was for 30 something years, all I did was look through this lens, right? This was my filtering system. That's all I knew. And I was already identifying that when the distortion began. And then I realized all these things that I loved, running, any, martial arts, all of that, I started to question it all. And so my guide also helped me understand how important it was to feel that. And so what did I do? I chose to stop it all. And boy, anybody who knew me would never believe that stopping, when I say stop it all, I quit the boxing gym. I stopped going to hot yoga. I stopped running. I stopped, there were some things I did. I enjoyed walks, long walks. But what was I doing initially? I was wearing weight vest or well, yeah, weights. I'm like, okay, well, I'm walking. And so it was an unraveling over a period of a year of what I thought that I was really doing something because I loved it. I still wasn't. And and I didn't know what it was like to be still or not to be action oriented. I always said I'm biased to action. And boy, I got rewarded for that in my career. How many things I could accomplish in a week or a day. The more I did, the less I slept, the more hours I put in, uh, all of that. I was rewarded for the activity. The more I went to the gym, the more I did multiple classes in a day. Oh, I was thought I was being rewarded for it because, oh yeah. So I dropped 2 pounds since yesterday. Oh, it's working. Oh, maybe I can do a third class today and I'll drop more, or I'll just don't eat. So it was so ingrained in me. It was like a I want to call it a disease, but it was just I was my whole body, my whole system was just raveled with this heavy distortion. And I didn't know what life was like to live without it. So I just had to start there. I had to start there and ask, what would feel really good right now? And it took me a long time to really get that, to really hear that clearly. Because at the same time, that had such a hold, a grip on me all of my life. It's how I defined myself, right? It was my worthiness. So it took, I visualized these cords, like just kept cutting the cords, like, oh no, I think that's, from a past experience that I had that I'm defining myself on all this. So in that over a year, I I stopped most things that I used to love. And today I can say, and like I said yesterday, I'm still on a little bit of a healing journey. This is not something that I would say I completely have overcome. But what I am so grateful for is I now recently started to take some yoga classes. And I remember the first time I had returned to it. Uh, One, I do remember the first when I returned to after about a year, I was not ready for it because when I went into that class, all I was doing was comparing myself to others. And I was quite emotional during the whole class. And I shared that with my guide. And so I stopped for a number of weeks. And then one, she helped me to see, and this is what I've been doing, is feeling like in the moment, oh, I really feel like going to a yoga class rather than planning for it, right? That's one key thing. Another aspect that I reinforced a lot is planning for it. Uh, it was several weeks later. I had woken up one morning and I thought, I really want to feel like going to a yoga class. I went there and I had a completely different experience. I wasn't looking around the room. I was feeling my body in a way of appreciation of what it can do, not what it used to do. And went to a second class a couple weeks later. Well, last week I went to a third class since I took this large break, and it was magical. First of all, I did things effortlessly that I had never done before, that I had not done in a very long time. The previous class, I didn't even think about it, but I was like, oh, I really not able to anymore, you know, reach back and touch my toes or what have you. And it just happened, and it happened again and again in the class. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is what it feels like when you love it. And it's easy, right? I didn't, it, there, it was judgment free. And I was just in deep appreciation for what my body could do, and that I was loving the activity of it. I'm hoping this makes sense. It is much more of a feeling. So this is the first time I'm really articulating it in that way, that it wasn't a have to. I guess another way of saying it, it wasn't a have to for the first time. It was a want to. And then I really knew I'm really ready to talk about this because now I could experience this feeling of the love for yoga and the love that what my body could do and how it feels, not as the judgment and the criticism. So, that's where I'm at with this. And it's so freeing to be able to, again, have the choice of what do I feel like doing, not be held by a schedule, and what would feel good for my body today. That's the other thing. Not that once I sign up for something, I'm committing to do this for forever or for any period of time. So I I'm going to talk at my next live, a little bit more about the supplements piece, but it ties in. But for today, I really wanted to focus on more of the exercise part of this. So where that distortion continued to hold a grip for me, and when I became able to understand the how it gripped me so that I can heal from it. And that definitely required me to let go of things that I had previously thought that I just loved and I would always do. So hopefully this helps some of you. Again, maybe you picked up something that will help your healing. And please feel free to share any questions or your own experiences. Would love to hear this. Again, this is a topic that I know that I'm not alone with. And I thank you for giving me the space to be able to share my story. So until next time, and I'll probably maybe not tomorrow, but the next day. So in the next couple of days, you'll see me back again for part 3 of this series. All right, everyone.